If you've ever bent over to pull weeds on a hot summer morning and wondered, why do these things grow faster than anything I actually planted? You're not alone. But let me tell you something that changed the way I see weeds forever. A few weeks ago, I was clearing out a wild corner of my Aussie garden. Dry, crumbly soil, barely anything growing that I actually wanted. But tucked between the struggling tomato plants and dried mulch, there were 3 weeds that refused to quit: mallow, sow thistle, and purslane. I almost yanked them all out, but curiosity won. I decided to observe instead of destroy. That decision led to a discovery that shocked me. Within 48 hours of chopping down one of the mallow plants and leaving its leaves on the surface, I noticed something unusual. Worms, dozens of them, started clustering directly underneath the stem base. I set up a time-lapse camera out of pure interest, and the footage made my jaw drop. Earthworms moved in like they'd been waiting for this weed buffet all along. Have you ever noticed worms gathering around certain plants or weeds in your garden? Let me know below, especially if you've got purslane or mallow hanging around. You might be growing more soil life than you think. Let's explore why these weeds are doing what expensive worm attractants sometimes fail to do, and how you can use them to your advantage. The common mallow, or Malva parviflora, is often overlooked because, well, it just looks like a scrappy ground hugger. But don't let its humble appearance fool you. Its broad, soft leaves break down quickly when cut, providing immediate organic matter right there on the surface. That's actually what attracted the worms in the first place, but, the real magic lies underground. Mallow sends down a taproot that's kind of like a biological drill. It softens compacted soil, opens up channels for air and moisture, and draws up minerals like calcium and potassium from those deeper layers. And when the plant dies or you chop and drop it, all those nutrients stay put, creating this localized zone of fertility and worm activity. I found that once I chopped mallow back and just left the residue to wilt, within about 2 days, my soil went from dry and crusty to soft and almost spongy right where the stems had rested. The worms weren't just passing through, they were staying. And with them came microbial life, better water retention, and even new root activity from nearby plants. Purslane, or Portulaca oleracea, is already pretty well known among folks who are into edible weeds. It's just packed with omega-3 fatty acids, and honestly, it grows like crazy in warm, dry conditions. But here's the thing most gardeners don't realize. It decomposes really quickly, and yeah, it's actually super valuable as a worm feed. Since it's a succulent, purslane stores water in its leaves and stems, so when you cut it and just leave it on the soil surface, it doesn't dry out like those tough, fibrous weeds do. Instead, it turns soft and slimy in just a few hours, basically becoming a worm magnet. The sugars in its tissues end up feeding both bacteria and fungi, which are, 2 vital parts of a healthy composting process. When I tested purslane next to dried-out grass clippings and straw, the difference was, well, pretty obvious. Worms went for the purslane every single time. It's almost like they could smell that nutrient rush. And since it's low in lignin, purslane doesn't cause nitrogen drag like some of those woody mulches do. It's a green mulch that works fast and feeds really well. Then there's sow thistle, or Sonchus oleraceus. With its dandelion-like yellow blooms and spiky leaves, it doesn't really win many beauty contests, But if you've ever pulled one up and noticed that long, slender root, it's actually doing something pretty special down there. Sow thistle is what we call a dynamic accumulator. Basically, that means it mines trace minerals from deep in the soil profile, especially zinc, copper, and magnesium. Its leaves, once they're chopped, return these minerals to the upper layers of soil, where all those shallow-rooted vegetables can actually use them. But, honestly, and maybe more importantly for this guide, sow thistle is another worm attractor. Once it's wilted, those juicy stems start breaking down pretty quickly. I've had real success using it as a mid-layer in compost piles to keep the heap moist and worm-friendly, even during the dry Australian sun. In one side-by-side test I ran, I layered sow thistle leaves under mulch on one half of a raised bed and left the other half with just straw. The side with thistle showed noticeably more worm castings and better soil texture within a week. It's easy to think worms just like moisture or organic matter, but they're also drawn to microbial activity. When you drop soft, green plant matter like mallow purslane or sow thistle onto soil, it jumpstarts microbial decomposition. That activity creates warmth, carbon dioxide, and food, essentially an invitation to worms to come and feed. These plants also tend to be rich in soluble nitrogen and carbohydrates, which feed bacteria. And bacteria are like popcorn to worms. They'll follow it anywhere. In a way, these weeds are acting as a prebiotic and probiotic combination. They feed microbes, and they break down quickly into accessible food for worm digestion. That's the power of using nature's weeds to build nature's workers, without spending a dime. If you find any of these weeds growing, don't rip them out completely. Instead, try the chop and drop method. Cut them at the base, lay the leaves back over the soil as mulch, and leave the roots in place. Within a few days, check for worm activity. You can even dig a shallow spot nearby and compare texture and smell. It's a fun, low-tech experiment that teaches you how living soil responds. Over time, these weeds help break up compaction, attract beneficial insects, feed microbes, and boost worm populations. All from plants most gardeners toss in the bin. So, was the mallow I almost pulled out a nuisance? Or was it nature's free soil builder in disguise? I think you know the answer. When managed wisely, certain weeds become your partners in creating fertile, worm-filled, moisture-rich soil. Before you grab the hoe next time, take a closer look. Some weeds are telling you your soil is alive, or at least ready to come back to life. If this inspired you to rethink what's growing wild in your garden, hit that subscribe button, give this a thumbs up, and share it with a gardening friend who might be battling weeds of their own. This is Hydro Haven, where even the weeds are working for you. See you in the next guide.